Well, the Black Forest is an interesting place, and pre-settlement of this area, it was a very different forest. Right now, the forest is really far outgrown what we would call the historical norm of this forest. And what I mean by historical norm is the density of vegetation. If you look where the Black Forest is located, the treed area, if you go out to the east a little ways, you'll find the high plains of Colorado. And the high plains of Colorado are a very different area than what we would consider our mountainous areas. And not only is the terrain a little bit more gentler, but we don't have the rainfall and the snowpack that our mountains get. So this is a drier environment. And when you look at the ponderosa forests out here, historically they had a much higher frequency of fire, what we call a fire regime. That regime is actually the distance in years between fire events. Bottom line is, in the Black Forest, fire used to come through here on a somewhat frequent basis, and in general, when it was coming off the prairies, it was a lower intensity fire based on the type of fuels that were burning the grasses.
Wildland fire is a natural part of living in the forest. The ponderosa forest is a fire-based ecosystem. Mother Nature uses that to clean out the sick, the dead woods, kind of like cleaning out the dust bunnies underneath your bed.
When those fires would come through, they would burn up the small vegetation, the new seedlings, they would take care of brush, they would burn up dead and down material, and they would occasionally burn up some of the ponderosa pine too. However, ponderosa pine is well adapted to fire. Ponderosa pine has developed a very thick, corky bark that allows it to withstand low intensity fire pretty well. We saw that in the Black Forest fire event, where we had fire come through on the ground, consuming grasses, needles, leaf litter, that type of thing. The fire intensity, or the heat off the fire, didn't destroy the ponderosa pines. It may have charred the trunk. Their thicker bark allowed them to live through that event. It may have scorched lower limbs. Well, that's typical on low intensity fire. What they're not adapted to is being as crowded together as we see in most of our area here of the Black Forest, where crown fire was able to get up into the crowns of the trees. That fire left the ground, was transferred to the crowns through, for the most part, what we call dog hair ponderosa pine growth, and that is tree growth that is very, very, very dense, much like the fur on a dog's back, as it were. May there always have been pockets of extremely dense plant material? Yes. Were there pockets that fire just didn't get to for a long time? Yes. When they burned, did they exhibit the type of fire behavior that we saw during the Black Forest fire? And the answer is yes. However, that kind of environment was not ubiquitous across the landscape like it is today.
We've created what we call the wildland-urban interface. Homes and barns and sheds are not natural occurrence in a forest. They don't grow from seeds.
You may have a lot of folks that live here that say they want to keep the natural look of the area. And the natural look is a bit of a misnomer. If you look at many places in the forest today, and if you think that is the natural look, you're mistaken. That's not what we would call the historical norm or the pre-settlement look of this area.
What we've seen out here in the forest is people love their trees. And they think that a thick, heavy forest is what they've come to live, what they want to live in. What we need to do is thin those fuels, because the heavier the fuels, the more violent and extreme the fire that we have. And in those situations, we can't fight that fire.
Pre-settlement, 20 to 40 trees per acre, ponderosa pine per acre, would have been more the norm. And now we have upwards of 1,000 trees, 500 to 1,000 trees per acre. That is dysfunctional. That is not a healthy forest. There are really three things that are involved with fire behavior. And these are fuels, weather, and topography. That are the three things that drive fire behavior. Everything we do in wildland fire circles around fire behavior. Everything we do with regards to mitigation Fuel removal, fuel alteration has to do with fire behavior. Fire behavior in this instance, in the Black Forest fire, went into the extreme category. Crown fire is known as an extreme fire event, and that's what carried this fire. The timber carried fire for almost 7 miles in less than 5 hours. In the areas that we had this kind of burn, high intensity fire behavior, that area was pretty much a biological desert to start with. And I say that because the density of the plant materials in there, in essence, provided so much shade that all you had growing was ponderosa pine. You didn't have the grasses, you didn't have the forbs, you didn't have the shrubs. So it was a biological desert in a lot of respects. And in the areas where they have been thinned and mitigated, you had a greater variety of plant materials. And after those areas burned, I think we'll see even a greater variety of plant material. Whether you like it or not, you have become a land manager when you move out to an area like this. Now, if you came from an urban environment, maybe your land management duties were as simple as mowing the yard and getting rid of a few dandelions. When you move out here, whether you have 1 acre, 5 acres, or 500 acres, you're a land manager with different concerns. And those concerns vary from aesthetics to property values to wildlife concerns to erosion concerns with the loose soils and if you're on steeper grounds. Privacy concerns, we use vegetation as screening, views in, views out of the property. All these things I have found are very compatible. They all work just like this if you think ahead and plan it out. If you take a holistic look at your property and you consider all of the different elements that you need to, in effect, design for with your mitigation efforts, you will find they all work very well together. You will provide better habitat, you will provide a higher degree of aesthetics, you will increase your property values, you will reduce your fire behavior.
You need to look at that entire property and get somebody out there, an expert that knows what they're doing. Fire officials in many cases in communities will come out and help walk the property. Your insurance company will talk to you about what their expectations are. Insurance companies have increasingly, really since the Hayman fire in 2002, have mitigation programs in place where when they sell an insurance policy, when they renew that policy, they ask their customers to share that risk to protect that home. So whether that's to clear needles off the roof, thin the trees, create an ignition resistance around the home, and then what are their building materials? Do they have fire resistant building materials? Have they looked at fire resistant plants around their home? And then have they done the simple stuff? Move fuels away from that home, whether that's a wood pile up against the home. And then they're also looking at things like slope. Do they have an access road that an emergency vehicle can get up and turn around? So insurance companies really aren't just looking at how high of a premium should they charge for insurance rates in those high-risk areas. They're looking at what is that risk? Is that home insurable? And so they will ask you to do the mitigation steps to help protect that home. And if you're unwilling to thin those trees, to take those preventative steps, that insurance company may not insure you. They'll just decide you are not a risk that they can take on, really to protect their other policyholders.
Ideally, we talk about zones. Zone 1 is that first zone around the home. We want to create a zone of 15 to 30 feet around them that has as minimal amount of trees, of flammable materials and so forth as possible around them, including wood piles, including your propane tanks or anything along those lines. We want that outside that 30-foot range. If you look to this side here, we've got this belt of Douglas fir here, which is certainly a concern. It's within 20 feet of the home. They're fairly mature. There is an issue with this potentially, and the homeowners are considering moving some of those out or thinning them down some. If you look underneath over here, we've got another situation going on over here with the decking system. Right now, there isn't any kind of screening. We suggest 1/8 inch or 16th inch wire mesh wrapped completely around the deck. Zone 2 goes up to around 100 feet away from the home. And what we want in that area is we want our grasses mowed down if possible to 6 inches or less. We want trees limbed up to 10 feet if possible. Zone 3 then extends to the rest of your property, and that is just good cleaning principles, maybe some delimbing, some thinning of the trees to what would be considered a normal kind of looking forest. We want to keep 30 feet on either side of the driveway to allow a safe vector for the fire trucks to get in and out. They've got an access point here, and on the other side of the property there's an access point that leads out to the road over that way. So again, those two egress points are really critical.
Ingress and egress are fancy ways of saying how we get in and how we get out. We need to be able to get our firefighters in and out of an area safely, that they are not challenged or blocked off by heavy fuels that could be burning and trap them. We need to make sure that neighborhoods can be evacuated.
If you have intense fire coming across roadways, that can be an entrapment situation, and that's not good. That doesn't help us do our job. So there's a lot of reasons to keep the roadways clear, a lot of very valid reasons, life safety being paramount.
If there's no life safety concerns for other people, if they've evacuated, we're not going to send a crew in to be put in mortal danger for an empty house or for trees.
This roadway is wide enough and the vegetation is cut back on each side of the road. So we didn't get direct flame impingement crossing the roadway, igniting another overly dense stand of trees that continued that crown fire.
It's important not to just look at the trees, the perimeter just right around your property. Look at everything from what is your deck made out of? What is your siding? What are your windows?
We can impact the effects of this disaster before it happens. We don't have that opportunities with hurricanes. We don't have that opportunity with tornadoes. We do have an opportunity here and now to be able to lessen the impact of a wildfire on our properties, on our communities.
I think it can be overwhelming for people, but especially in Colorado, we have so many resources. Everyone from the National Fire Protection Association and FireWise to your county and city governments, they have information that will help you take those mitigation steps. And then the insurance industry also is doing a lot of research on this. We actually have a lab that's in North Carolina called the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And in that lab, they do real-world testing of ember fires, and they burn down homes. And they see what kind of siding do you need, what kind of decks do you need. You know, with especially an ember-driven fire like we've seen in Colorado with both the Waldo Canyon fire and the Black Forest fire, that's a wind-driven fire. Those homes are catching fire with the burning embers before the flames even get there. So those mitigation steps become critical. And with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, with that testing, not only do they do the real-world testing in the lab with an ember fire, what causes a home to burn, they also came out after the Waldo Canyon fire, did on-the-ground assessments along with local fire officials to look at how did that fire burn, what was saved, what wasn't saved. Unfortunately, in Waldo Canyon, Colorado Springs, they actually have a wood roof ban that they put in place after the Hayman fire, but many of those homes from the 80s and 90s still had those wood shake shingle roofs on them, and those just go up in flames. So be thinking about everything from what is your roof made of? Is it a Class A fire protection roof? What are the fuels around your home? What is the construction of your home? How much ignition resistance you have around the home? If you thin those trees?
There's a program called FireWise Communities, and this is where groups of people can get together and perform mutually supporting mitigation. Last year we had a homeowners association, High Forest Ranch, become nationally recognized as a FireWise community. They've embraced and adopted the FireWise concepts throughout their community to mitigate on their properties and to create mutually protective zones. It's been equated to creating a community quilt, where one square on that quilt being mitigated looks very nice. But the more you put together, the more it's effective.
Doing it by themselves doesn't necessarily mean that their house is going to be protected. It really is a community-wide effort that needs to take place. We've seen this in the multitudes of fires that have happened across not only our state, but across the whole United States, that those areas that were protected as community tend to fare better in these giant wildfires that come through.
By doing this, we create much larger mitigated areas, and we can actually affect the behavior of a wildfire and reduce the extreme behavior.
Why did folks move to this area? And the majority of people will tell you it's because of the environment, it's because of the trees. Well, is it because of the trees or is it because of the forest? And I would challenge you that it's because of the forest. It's this geographic distribution of these trees. It's not a single tree. So what we need to get out of our heads is that every tree is precious, because it's not. The forest is precious, and until we cut down some trees and until we do some thinning and help the overall forest health and help this forest to survive, we're going to keep being plagued with fire events and bug events.
We look to partner with our residents, with our community. It does not take a homeowners association or a large number of homes to become a FireWise community.
Mitigating is not just a one-time process. It is ongoing because our natural ecosystem continues to unfold and grow every year.
We still face a very large risk here in the Black Forest. Approximately 1/3 of our forested area burned during the Black Forest fire. We have very heavy forested areas. The trees are still stressed, competing for water. The dryness of our winter seasons and our summer seasons, we're not getting the moisture. So people have to be ever vigilant on protection from wildfire and mitigation in their efforts.
If you become a homeowner in this type of ecosystem, then it's your responsibility to do the preventive measures for your own safety and that of the first responders.
This is a journey. This is a lifestyle that we have to accept here in the forest. And one of the toughest things we face is people that move here don't have that perception yet. And part of the FireWise program that we provide is education for that. And education is a very large aspect of how we can inform people and that they can actually change their behaviors and perceptions and make it a lifestyle.
As you clean out around your home, as you do your tree thinning and create the defensible space that so many people have talked about, the El Paso County Environmental Division partners with SAMCOM, the Slash and Mulch Committee, for a program here in the Black Forest that we've been running for 20 years now. It's the Slash and Mulch program. It's open seasonally, May through September every year, and it's where residents of the entire county can bring their slash, which we refer to as tree debris. You can bring that to the Slash and Mulch site, which is on Herring and Shoup in the Black Forest, and it will actually be ground up into mulch. And then you can take that mulch for free at no charge. There is a fee if you want a loader to load your mulch, but if you're willing to pitchfork it yourself, and it's free for all. We encourage everyone to come and get some of that and to spread it back onto the forest floor. That certainly creates a healthy forest. Those nutrients going back into the ground are something that's really going to help your forest and create a healthy forest, and a healthy forest is a forest that's less likely to burn.